afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jackie Otero. I'm the program director for the Entertainment Business and Music Business Bachelor's Degree programs. Any entertainment music business in the house? All right. We're here today for Surviving and Thriving at Your First Gig, which was suggested to us by one of our Hall of Fame inductees this year, Grant Shonkwiler. And so I'm going to go ahead and intro him first. Grant is a game designer, producer, and consultant with Shock Ventures. So welcome, Grant.
Thank you.
And to my immediate left, we've got Billy Nettles. He's an audio engineer and the logistics and production manager for the Lux Productions. Welcome, Billy.
Thank you.
And last but not least, we have Culley Bunker, founder and lead visual effects artist at Scully FX. So let's give them all a warm welcome. All right, so we're talking about your first gig in the industry. You graduate, where do you start? Let's just get a brief intro from each one of you guys. Tell us about your first gig in the industry. How did you get it? What was it?
For myself, I went immediately into an internship after graduation, right to Transcontinental Records here in Orlando, and that was the home of all the boy and girl bands. And I was working at Disney while going to school as an engineer for a few of the live shows there. So I was immediately parceled off into the rehearsal rooms, and I started gradually working my way into an assistant engineer position.
Okay, cool, thank you.
That's awesome. For me, I applied to, I think it was like 100 and something jobs in the 5 months leading up to graduation. I worked with career development to identify a few positions, but also applied to a bunch on my own. Out of that 100, I got 4 or 5 phone interviews and 3 on-site interviews, 2 of which were direct results of relationships that I had built thanks to career development. And out of those 3, I think I got 2.5 job offers. One was kind of funky, and then the company shut down. But I got a couple job offers and ended up taking an offer from a company called Megatouch Games, which also no longer exists, in Pennsylvania, and went and was a programmer there. But really, it was all based on my relationship that I had built through career development with these companies. So they would come on campus, and I would go out and meet with them. Even if I was like in month 2 or 3, I was already meeting with these different studios. And so it's kind of really easy for me to interview and talk to them because I already knew most of the people who were there. So yeah, that was.
What kind of time frame are we talking about from graduation to getting that job offer and starting that job?
I had it 3 months before graduation.
You had it already lined up 3 months before?
Yeah. It made Final Project really fun.
Nice.
Because I was just like, I'll just
go get her.
It's like I already had an apartment figured out and a roommate and just like worked on the Final Project. So that was a nice way to do it. And then I took a month off to get my wisdom teeth pulled out.
Fun.
It was a good vacation.
All right, Culley, how about you?
My first job is kind of a mesh of a few jobs. And it's a slightly long story, so I'm going to try to see how I can condense it. I had a job as well when I looked through school. I was an audio tech at Universal Studios, but that wasn't what I graduated to do. So technically my first job I already had when I was in school. But the one that mattered the most, after I graduated school, a friend of mine had heard about this company in Miami that had something back then called Flame. Flame was a $500,000 to $1 million computer back then, and I found out you could make a pretty good dollar if you were an artist. So I drove down there and talked with these people that had this box. And there were 2 companies in the building. One was a production company, and the other one sold the Flame. And they kind of shared space and shared gear. So I said, what do I have to do to just be here or do whatever I work with you guys? And they said, just come down and be an intern. So I went up to Michigan in my van and dropped off as much stuff as I could from my apartment, and came back to Miami and basically lived at the studio for almost a year. Wow. At the studio, on a futon, out of my van, showering at the beach when they switched offices, just to learn this box. So wow. I really put in a lot of work to find a direction that I thought would be fun and lucrative.
Wow.
So my first job was in Miami. And my first on-air was a place called CBS Telenoticias. I actually did graphics briefly for a couple Spanish TV shows. So, yeah, it was kind of a conglomerate.
Great. Okay, so I'll just throw out some questions to all of you guys, and just feel free to grab whichever ones you want to answer. Tell us a little bit about the professional habits that you should go into that entry-level job having to get noticed and build some positive relationships.
Yeah, for me, it was really like just being willing to do whatever was needed, and being kind of more structured in the way I approached everything. So, you know, when they would come and say, hey, can you work on this? I would automatically be like, okay, I think it's going to take this amount of time. Or I'd be like, can I do some research, tell you how long it's going to take, and then kind of tackle it. And it was kind of funny because the first thing I was asked to do at the company was make Pong. And the idea of making Pong in their own engine was like, hey, you can take a little time to get to know the engine and figure things out. And I think I was scheduled to do that for like a week, and I did it in an afternoon. And they were like, okay. I was like, okay, what now? And they were like, rewrite the audio engine. For programmers in here, you realize that is kind of ridiculous. And I was like, okay. And so I spent 3 weeks completely writing the audio engine from scratch. And that was when I realized like the main thing that they were looking for was someone who could solve problems, and not like make excuses or take breaks on it, right? It was just like, here's the problem, identify how you're going to fix it, give us the information, and go do it. And that has been consistent across my entire career, is like those kind of things, like take the problem, identify how you're going to solve it, communicate how you're going to solve it, start working on it.
Yeah, I find the most prized employees that you can have are the ones that don't just bring you the problems.
Yeah.
They're bringing you the solutions too.
Yeah.
And my first substantial job that I was at for more than a few weeks or a few months, or working for free for a year, I found that finding other places just that the company was needing filled, I would fill those areas. They needed somebody to learn how to run the server, add email for people, build computers. Like not only did I do visual effects, but I filled 3 other people's jobs that had slowly left the company, and now I'm invaluable.
Yeah.
So if they let me go, they would have to hire 3 or 4 more people, and that wasn't going to happen. So making yourself invaluable in other ways than you got hired for that company can, be job security.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, making yourself invaluable is huge. Taking initiative. If you see a problem, as you said, you don't just bring it to them, bring a solution with you. Be a problem solver, and it can be as simple as, dating myself here, but old school studio days when there's tape lockers, you go in and it's just, things are all askew and tape cases are everywhere and there's, stacks of them on the floor that have never been cataloged, and you're just like, I got a half hour, I'm gonna start putting this stuff up. I'm going to make somebody else's life easier and be support to them.
Yeah, Fernando and I were talking the other day, and he told me a story about when he was doing a job, and they asked him to clean out a studio room, and he took everything out, labeled everything, took everything out, and scrubbed it with a toothbrush, and then put everything back. And they were so overwhelmingly impressed because he didn't do the bare minimum, right? The bare minimum would have been to shift the cords, vacuum, and be like, yeah, it's cleaned. But instead he looked for the problem and then created a bigger solution for it and went above and beyond. And I think that's, when I put the idea for this forward, that's what I've identified in almost every alumni I've talked to here. Is it's not like they went in and just did their job. They went forward and did things that they saw needed done. They made themselves invaluable. They went above and beyond with things, and that's how you thrive at your first job, right? Is you make yourself invaluable.
Find something that's inefficient and find a solution.
Yeah.
And save them money.
Yeah. My
Employers like to save.
My buddy saved his company I think it was $15 million a year, and he was like, "Do I get part of that?"
Nope.
But he's never gonna get fired, ever.
Yeah. If there's a piece of gear even that you don't know where you're working, make it your time to go and learn it. I walked into the production company I work for now, and during the interview, do you have any questions for us? Yeah, what consoles do you use? Okay, I've never worked on that. Give me 2 days. I'm going to go and do all the research I can. Come back, I'll set up an entire show for you in the warehouse. So I ring out that warehouse perfect. And, it's like, you're going to do some shows for us now, just by taking my time to make sure that I had their gear down, on me. I'm not expecting them to pay me to do that. That's me doing my research to become invaluable for them.
Yeah, that's key.
Sometimes when you're early on in your career, you don't want to admit the things that you don't know. It's like you want to be confident, you want to go in there just thinking, yes, I can kill it, anything you need. When is that line, when is it appropriate to be asking those questions and admitting the things that you don't know? When should you just be resourceful and try to figure things out?
When you hit a roadblock, you should try to invest your time into doing the research and not taking the easy route and going and asking. It's not that they come and ask me. They come and ask my artists when they hit a roadblock, go and ask other artists, which takes time away from them doing their job.
Yeah.
And when I see that and I know that it's something that they could have researched easily themselves, that is upsetting. So if you hit a roadblock, we want you to ask questions. But make sure that it's not just going the easy route because you want to figure it out, because you're going to cause the company to slow down.
Yeah, it's like step 1, try and solve it on your own. Step 2, Google it. Step 3, Google more of it. And then like step 4, if you're stuck, then go ask somebody. I think there are a few times that it's like just go ask somebody. Like if you're working in proprietary software or proprietary code, like the only person who can answer that is probably your coworker. Like nobody online is going to be like, I know how to fix your problem that no one else knows how to use your tool. But other than that, yeah, like you always try and solve it first. And I've seen people not survive their first gig because they were just constantly asking questions, and basically the lead was like, you're costing us too much money at this point, because we're spending more time answering your questions and you don't have the drive to go solve these problems on your own or look on the internet for them. Yeah, and it's really bad when like I'm getting constant questions from somebody and I start sending them the let me Google that for you link to be like, look, this is how I'm answering your questions by Googling them. Like, you can do this too. Do one Google search first.
So the total opposite of that, I've seen people who know how to do something but want to do it differently and waste our time that way.
Yeah, that's
like,
awesome.
oh, there's this new technique I want to do, but then they can't get it. And by the time they had to go back and do it the regular way, I get experimentation. I'm all for it. But as soon as it starts costing us time and money, then do that on your own time.
Yeah, like you said, learn and experiment on your own time.
Yeah. Always, your experiment is on your dime, not your company's dime. Don't bring that to work. Until you got it down.
Any advice on developing good working relationships with coworkers and with maybe people higher up in the company?
Yeah, that's a good one. For me, it's always just been like the walk around. Like I tend to walk around and say good morning to people. And it got a little hard once I was in a studio of like 500 or 600 people, but anything below like 200, you can at least say good morning, right? And I worked in Poland for a while, and one of the things I loved about their culture, but hate because I'm a germaphobe, is every morning they come in and walk around the studio and shake hands with each other. Like every person, when they come in, they're like, good morning, good morning, good morning, but in Polish. And and for me, I'm like, good morning, hand sanitizer, right? But the idea of kind of just, we're in this together, we're setting this presence, we're here. That's the initial one. And then, asking people if they want to go to lunch or going into the lunchroom and kind of hanging out with them. Because part of the company you'll work in the trenches with. You'll ask them questions, you'll figure things out that way. But really starting to reach out to people. That's how, at my first job, I started to get recognized by the CEO, was because, one, I said hi to him every morning, and two, he started to see that I was connecting groups of people that had never been connected before. And it wasn't a work reason. There was no, I wasn't like, hey, you guys should talk to each other for work. It was just like, hey, I'm going to lunch with this person, you should come too. And then they're like, oh, why don't our departments ever talk to each other? And so that can kind of not just help you develop that relationship, but it can kind of make you stand out.
you're changing the culture of your location
Yeah.
there in a way. Yeah. Some of it has to do with the culture that you're working in, how the business has been established. If it's a very old school manner of, there's this hierarchy and you have to take your steps and you don't talk to the president before you've talked to, the department head or whatever. A lot of that you're going to run into, but find ways to engage with people. I think all of us being creatives will dive deeply into our own heads and have blinders on because you're processing something that you're working on. I can't get this compression right, and I'm just sitting here and 10 people have just walked by me, and if I don't acknowledge them, why is he being such a jerk? He didn't say anything to me. It's just like, step out. When you step away from your console, you step away from your computer, step away, clear your head for a minute, say hi to the people that are around you and talk to them, and, not saying to go and interrupt their workflow, but those that are around you that are.
Yeah. There's always like the one person that's like, hey, so what'd you get up to this weekend? And you're like, I'm just trying to like get in the zone. I literally just started coding. I had a thing when I was doing design where I literally had a flag. And if the flag was up, it was like, don't talk to me because I'm like
awesome.
In flow mode, I'm in the zone. And then I also had a walking track where like I would wear headphones and listen to music and I would write. And there was like, other people just didn't go there because they knew like if they walked back, I would like see them and it would like snap me out of something. And I'd be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Because I'm a friendly person. And then it was like done. So yeah, I think you'll start to, as you're at a place, you'll start to discover people's work rhythms, right? And then you don't interrupt them. But I like that you were like, don't be a jerk. Like that's pretty much what we're saying. Like, don't be a jerk. Smile and say hello. Like
acknowledge your fellow humans. It's not hard.
Any other common mistakes that you see from entry-level greener employees?
Culley hires people, so he sees lots of problems.
I'm pretty easy-going. That's the problem. I'm probably too easy-going. I give too many chances.
I want to tell a story about an intern, and it's kind of a redemptive story. So if he happens to watch this, he'll know it's about him. But I had an intern who came in, and having an intern, what you don't realize when you're interning is you're a lot of work. Right, like I would take 10 hours out of my week to focus on my intern's growth, and we paid our interns and we gave them housing and stuff like that. So it was a really great situation, and my intern, his focus was just off. He would said he was looking for apartments, and I'm like, why are you looking for apartments? He's like, well, if I get a full-time job offer. I'm like, we're like 2 weeks into this, man, like, and you haven't proven yourself. Like, what are you doing? And then he was like online dating during work, and I was like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, oh, I'm like on Tinder. And I'm like, all right. And so we had to come to Jesus, and I was like, why are you here? Like, why are you here? Because if you're here to like have this lifestyle that you want to have, then you're gone. Like, I'm just gonna kick you out. Like, you're not worth my time. But I think you are worth my time, so let's go over some ground rules. Let's talk about why you're here. Let's talk about how you can grow in this position and what full-time might look like, but not focus on that. If you're doing an internship, you shouldn't focus on full-time right away. You should focus on proving yourself and learning. And so he ended up, I didn't fire him. He redeemed himself. He did good work, and he works now. He has a job somewhere else. But it was really... it was shocking to me that he was like that. And that year's internship class was really interesting because we had one full sail grad, and we had 8 interns total. Only one person got a job offer, and that was the full sail grad. And it was because he worked super hard. We wouldn't allow them to work overtime, but he would go back to his housing and he would work on stuff to learn, and then he would come back and be like, I learned this new technique, or I learned this thing that someone else had referenced yesterday. Here's how to do it. And we would have these internship meetings where all the mentees would get together, and everybody's like, no, we got to hire this guy like right away. And then they ended up firing someone from that class as well because he couldn't take feedback. So that's probably one of the hardest things that it's nearly impossible to teach in university. And so you, as students, kind of have to teach each other how to get and receive feedback, because if you're an artist, which everyone here is an artist of some kind. If you're an artist and you make art and someone tells you your art is not good enough and it needs to change, you can't take that personally. And this guy took it personally, and so he would like go tweak things for like a day, and then we'd look at it again and it'd be the exact same. And he's like, because that's just how it should look. And we're like, dude, you're making a bush, okay? You're making a bush and it needs to look like this. And he's like, no, I think it should look like this. And we're like, bye. Like, time to go.
It's funny. It almost comes back to basics. Like, come to work clean. I hate to say it, but
Take a shower.
Something that
Even if it's at the beach.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's very true. Don't be on your phone. Nothing perturbs me more when I'm coming down the stairs and I say, that's just, you got time to be on the phone, you got time to learn at the place, do a tutorial or something. If you want to use the phone, walk away from your desk, go outside, have a break. Don't necessarily do it all the time there. I get checking some stuff, but it becomes a habit, and we all have that habit. Trust me, I'm horrible at it, but I'm the boss. It's just really basic stuff that if you can get through that, then get to the work.
Yeah, I think that's key.
Billy, any other mistakes you see?
It's a weird one to phrase, but the overachiever, and I don't want to say this in a way that I'm not trying to push you away from being very positive and being very aggressive and going after what you want, but nobody's going to put you directly, in my world, on a $300,000 or $400,000 audio console until you've proven yourself. You have to take the time. You have to show them that you're trustworthy, and you have to build that brand of you and become that invaluable employee. They're not, you've come to Full Sail. You've got this great degree. That's step one. Now you have to learn, the interpersonal skills. You have to prove yourself that you can be trusted to, take tasks, do them, own them, and they will start bringing things your way. We don't ever put somebody right out in front of, I do multi-million-dollar fundraisers for cancer research and whatnot, and they will, that show hinges upon how good and clear that audio comes out. And if you are, not so great at mixing the human voice, then you probably shouldn't be there yet, and let somebody kind of help you and guide you and steer you towards the right moves you need to make. And you'll get there. You just have to have that patience. Be eager, but not to the point where you're like, they're not letting me mix, I'm out of here. Have some patience. We will get you there. We will build our trust in you as well.
I think that comes back to what we were saying earlier about ego, right? Like, you can't come into your first job with any ego because you know the least of any person there. Even if you've been hired as an expert or to solve a problem, you know less about that problem than they do, right? And that's one of my two biggest pet peeves for new people are when someone says it's not my job. I'm like, cool. Well, none of this is your job now because you're fired. Or you don't know what you're talking about. I've literally had a new person be like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah. I've been making games since before you were born, but I don't know what I'm talking about. It's like that ego has to be gone. You have to realize you're coming in as the newest employee. Mm-hmm. I feel this way even when I'm I've been doing this for over 10 years, and I still feel this way when I start at a new company or I come in to consult with a new company. I know the least about their situation, so I'm just going to open my ears up, be a sponge, absorb what's going on, and learn from it.
I did have an artist that was, he was the smartest guy I've ever met. He came in, he knew everything about everything, but he didn't have an eye, and he wouldn't let you teach him how to have an eye. He knew more than me. He knew I swear he knew more than anybody about compositing and the software and how to use it, but he could not make a comp to save his life. Wow. It was really frustrating because I could see his potential.
Mm-hmm. And if you can control your ego and step back and let the way that company works, be instilled in you, they will turn to you because you're the most recent graduate from Full Sail that's learned something that we haven't seen yet, or has some bit of knowledge that we're going to take from from your education. So you are also a teacher when you're out there. So
Let's take a few questions from the students here. We've got some mics coming around.
Hello, my name is Alice, and I'm a computer animation student. And my question is, when you're choosing your interns, what are you looking at, like on his resume? I don't know, his work, because you get probably like a bunch of them, like requests, and which one get?
Myself, I'm looking. I'm a small shop, mostly compositing, so I'm looking for rotoscoping, tracking, and compositing. So if I see a reel that can show those skills, more than likely try to give a person a chance. Believe it or not many people get to LA and come to my office to intern. So
Yeah, I'm gonna throw out a plug for a graduate studio that's actually hiring interns in the lobby right now. It's called Continuum Studio. It's a game studio, and he looks for something different than I look for. I'm sure. I think everybody looks for something different. For me, we have all of our intern candidates write an essay, and the essay tends to be the key for me. And it's like, what do you feel like is your unique value add to the game industry? Because I'm looking to, with internships, I'm looking to bring people along that are not necessarily able to be empowered to be in the industry in other ways. I'm looking for unique voices and people who develop leadership skills, show those leadership skills. The technical skills, that's the resume. I'm looking for a normal standard resume. I'm looking to see what your competencies are, have a website, portfolio, whatever it may be. But for me, it always comes down to that cover letter style essay of like, this is what I want to accomplish while I'm at your company. This is what I hope to glean information and I want to learn from. I mean, I had one intern like specifically be like, I want to intern with Grant because he knows X, Y, and Z. And I was like, it's hard to say no to that. That flattery always gets to you. I'm like, all right, come on. You can come learn from me. But yeah, I think that's what I always look for.
Hi, this is from the online people who are listening online or watching online. From Jasmine in entertainment business. She wants to know what some of the things that you guys do as a part of your daily routine. What do you do to achieve the most success and productivity?
Shower.
always a
Good starting
going
point.
back.
Brush my
theme.
teeth.
In the morning, I come in, I read my emails. If I'm slow, I should do this when I'm not slow as well. But I have a board that I run. I have clients, and I just run down the board. Have I called these guys in the last couple of weeks, and just to stay fresh in their minds. So I come in, read my emails, run the board, check the server. Just I have a routine, and I'm hoping that the client list, the rundown, which you guys should probably have getting a job. It's the same thing. Companies, who you contacted, when you contacted them, what they said. Treat it just like I treat my clients. Finding a job is a job in itself. So I would say what I'm doing is the same thing you should be doing, and hopefully we'll both be successful.
I work with a small live event production company, small in size of company. The events we do are huge, but I wear many hats, so I do a lot of different things. My day, once I get to the office, I do greet everyone, because there's 15 of us or so it's really quick and really easy. But then it's, hitting the email chain to see where we left off yesterday, and then how many shows do I have to produce today? Do I have to go out to a site right now and begin an install, or check the site for the next upcoming show there? So it really is variable day by day for me. So it's with an average of about 100 shows a year, they are 100 completely different shows. It is 2 shows a week roughly. Sometimes it's one. It's just kind of a balancing act, and it's install, run the show, strike the show, put all the gear away, and that's all of our team. So it can be something different every day for me.
What's the most shows you've done in a week?
It was one show that had many components, and it was the V Foundation is one of our big ones. It's the Jimmy Valvano Cancer Research fundraiser. So it's a multi-day, multi-venue event. It starts off with some kind of forums and researchers and doctors talking. So that's kind of like a talking head show. And then we do a giant house party, and we take up an entire field, basically, stage at one end. We have bands, we do food and wine. This is centered in Napa Valley in California, so there's a lot of fantastic food and wine out there. So live events, you eat well.
That sounds like a rough week.
Yeah, it's tiring because you're putting in, and if the average job is 40 hours, the average entertainment job is probably another 20% more on top of that. A week like that, I'm running into 60, 80 hours easy. It's.
You mean a normal week?
Yeah, for this side of the world, yeah.
I want to add something. A calendar. Keep an accurate calendar so you don't miss appointments. You don't miss phone calls. You miss that phone call with the person you were supposed to talk to, and you might not get that next chance because they don't think you're interested in meeting that.
Yeah, my day-to-day is not going to be very relatable because I work with different clients and I work remotely. So I wake up and I try and remember where I am in the world. And so I look and I'm like, I'm not in my bed. Where am I? And then usually I download builds while I take a shower and things like that. And then work with whatever clients I work with that day. For me, I've over the last year, I've really been focusing on my work-life balance. So I've been trying to only work between 30 and 40 hours a week. But I do client work. So when you're doing client work, when you have clients, you work for the clients because you never know when you're going to run out of clients. So there have been times where I've been doing the 60, 80-hour weeks. But in general, the reason I started my own company was to take control of my life again and allow myself to have work-life balance. So.
Well, amazing as it is, we have already just about run out of time. That was super fast. So
We
let's
talked
just
too
do a
much.
quick speed round in our final minute. Any final tip or piece of advice that you'd like to share with the students?
Don't give up. That's
Never give up. Never surrender.
Network. Don't give up. If you give up, there's nothing left.
Yeah, I'm going to share a really quick story about me so that you can understand why this is such a passionate topic for me. So I started my first job as a programmer, and on my business card I had programmer, designer, producer, and people told me that was like crazy. And so I started my first job as a programmer, and I started to build a relationship with the creative director of the studio, and I jokingly pitched him games like all the time. And then one day he came over and he was like, hey, I don't have time to work on this. Can you write up this game idea and perfect it? And I was like, sure. And I did that. And then they changed my job title and I started doing that 50% and programming 50%. And then eventually they were like, look, you just take over all of game design. You're going to design all the games from now on. And then eventually they were like, you're in charge of game production. And so I was running the whole studio, and I was just putting myself out there and constantly talking to people and telling them, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, I'll take that, let me do that. And then my next gig got offered to me because people heard about how I was running the studio I was working at, and they were like, come be a producer or be a designer, be whatever you want to be. And I came in and I did the same thing. I just started taking things and being like, let me do that, being indispensable. So it's, once you realize you can survive your first job, then you got to figure out how you can be invaluable and then start taking on more and growing through that chain. So that's why this is such a passionate topic to me, because this is something that I know can happen because I did it. And I was sitting where you're sitting, 10 years ago. So just know that you can get into your first job and start doing what you want to do. And maybe that's not what you really want to do eventually, but maybe it's the feeder job that's going to get you there.
Feeder job. I like that.
Any final thought?
Take no out of your vocabulary.
Word, yeah.
You don't need that. You need to be able to roll with the punches and learn something new and figure out, if it's something you can't do, find your way to do it. You know, it's you got to learn, and you're always going to be a student for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Keep learning.
In the great words of Yoda.
All right, great note to end on. Let's give it up for Billy, Grant, and Culley. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm sure they can hang out for a couple more minutes if you didn't get to ask your question.